Hello, dear friends and colleagues. In the present world of interpreting, every day we are facing more and more hybrid events, whether it is that the interpreters are working from home or from a hub, and the event is taking place in some ballroom or some conference room or some organization live with everybody attending physically, or whether it's an event where the interpreters are present at the event and some of the attendants are there in person and some are appearing virtually from their home countries, or whether it is an event where the interpreters and the audience are present at the venue and the speaker is appearing virtually from somewhere else in the world. We are seeing more and more of these events every day where we work in the booth and at the same time we use a platform. Certainly, these events can be very successful and there is a big need for them and they satisfy a lot of needs that the world has right now, whether it is economic needs, needs because of the flexibility required due to the pandemic or any other situation. But a big problem that we face, and this is something that I have faced twice already in the very near past, and that many of my colleagues have faced because they have told me so, and I read about it, is those situations where one of the speakers or the main speaker or the only speaker is appearing virtually from a different location, is in front of a computer, but they are not using a USB microphone, whether it's a headset with a microphone or whether it is a microphone that you have on the table and that is plugged into the computer with a USB cable. But instead of that, they are relying on the computer's microphone, which usually has very poor sound quality. Many of the clients and even the attendants at the meeting or at the event think this is good. They think that they can hear and understand what the speaker is saying. However, the experience for the interpreters is not such. As interpreters, as you know, we have to hear every single word of what is being said because we have to process everything in order to interpret into the other language. And to be able to go from one language to the other, we have to be aware of everything that is happening. That doesn't necessarily happen when you have poor sound, and even ignoring at this point everything that has to do with our health, which we shouldn't ignore, but that's a matter for a different discussion. Just concentrating on the difficulties of interpreting such a speaker, I should say that this is a lost cause. We should not do it. But it's not the same to go and tell the client, I am sorry, your speaker is not wearing a headset or your speaker doesn't have a tabletop USB cable microphone, and therefore I cannot interpret this event. Because the client will think that you are full of it. They're going to think that you are just a prima donna and that you just don't want to play ball, that you're not flexible, that you have not modernized your practice, and that you don't want to live up to the modern trends of what is everybody using now, which is remote simultaneous interpreting. We have to explain to the client that that's not the case, that we will be willing to do it and happy to do it as long as the quality of the sound of that speaker that is virtually participating is the best possible quality. And for that, they have to have an appropriate microphone. We should explain to the client that unlike the people attending the meeting, who can hear part of what is being said, and even if there are glitches, even if there are words that are unintelligible, even if there are things that they missed, their brain will fill in the blanks, and because the brain does this function and because they are usually discussing a subject matter that they are very knowledgeable about, that they are very familiar with, then they will fill in the blanks and they will get the gist of the conversation and even the details, even when they didn't really hear everything. Or they can turn around to the person sitting next to them and say, what did he say? And they will say, well, she said this and this and this. So That cannot happen with us because we have to hear everything, because we are not specialists in that specific topic, because for us, not hearing one or two words or having a sound glitch means we cannot go into the target language because we don't have all the elements, and therefore that's not possible, because we have to be able to hear the speaker over our own voice, which nobody else there is doing, because your client is going to be quietly listening to the delivery of the speech by the virtual speaker. So once that we explain all this to them, the thing gets a little bit less complicated. I had two episodes lately, one where I tried to be the nice guy and just go ahead with the rendition, even though the speaker was appearing remotely and he did not have the right microphone. It was a nightmare. We couldn't really understand more than half of what he was saying, and the interpretation couldn't be performed the way that we are used to do it. This was explained to the client. We had to stop several times. There had to be repetitions. It was a total mess. Until finally the client realized that that was not the way to go. But they learned the hard way in this situation. For the second event, I was a little bit wiser, and I just was not willing to go through that circumstance again, and I never want to do it again, I gotta tell you. So when the problem arises the second time, and by the way, on both occasions we had previously given instructions in writing to the speaker. We had dry runs where the speaker was told what they needed to bring to the table the day of the event for as far as microphones, and they ignored us. They forgot, they didn't care. I don't know, but they didn't have the right microphone at the time of the event. So in this second occasion, before the event started, when we learned that the speaker was going to use the same computer embedded microphone, I talked to the client. I talked to the direct client, and I explained this to the client. And I asked the client to do a little test with me so that they would really understand what this was about. I asked the client to wear the headset and to listen to the speaker speaking just briefly, maybe 20, 30 seconds from the side where the speaker was appearing from, and just to listen and simultaneously do a shadowing. That is, to repeat in the same language, in the source language, in this case from English into English, what the speaker was saying, and to see if they could hear everything the speaker was saying, so they could do this repetition, this shadowing word by word. Needless to say, this was impossible. The client couldn't do it, and they stopped, and the client said, yes, interpreters are right, you need to get the right microphone. And at that point, the speaker miraculously found at least the earphones for his telephone, for his iPhone, and at least we used that, and that improved the quality of the sound quite a bit. That was not the ideal situation, but the main thing here is that we dropped the message home. The client understood that even shadowing was very difficult because you couldn't hear the speaker over your own voice, and because the sound was such, it was so poor that you couldn't get every single thing that was said, that if you added to that the fact that you had to interpret into the other language, into the target language, this could have been very difficult. So the client became a believer because of this little test, and it was very easy to convince them, both the client and the speaker, once that we did this. So from now on, every time that I run into that problem, I am going to ask the skeptic people to please join me for this type of exercise, because that will convince them of how difficult or basically impossible it is to do this without the proper sound. So I suggest you do something similar to that, and to draw the line on the sound and to tell the client it's either a good microphone, it's either good sound, or we are just not going to have an interpretation for that speaker today. I am prepared to say no to a speaker, whether it's the main speaker, the only speaker, or a little bit easier, I guess, one of many speakers in an event, when the speaker doesn't comply with this sound this basic microphone rule. So please try this at home. Try this with your clients. I think that most of your clients, if they really care about quality, will understand you and they will support you in this campaign to have better sound. At least that is my opinion. Thank you very much.